Hey guys, this is Locke. This is my free-to-play kind of guide for these raids from T11 to 215. I'm going to start with and say that it's actually really important that you get these raids done as soon as you can. Now that doesn't mean you have to do them, this week, but if you're able to do them, in 1 month, that's better than being able to do them in like 3 months. And the reason for that is because one of the drops from these raids is actually this item, the Moonstone, and they give quite a bit. Like it gives 25 Moonstones at T15 compared to just 3 Moonstones at T10. So it's a huge jump. So you want to try to progress to doing any one of them. It doesn't matter that you don't have to do all of them. If you focus on a single one of them and you're able to do the T15 on a single one, that's really good, and you can just keep farming it. You can use your clears, you can use your tickets and farm them as much as possible, and you will start to stockpile moonstones so that you can get future L plus units, because that is the easiest guaranteed way to get the L plus units. You don't want to gamble on the 5% chance in the summon store. You really want to get moonstones, and of course you will also start to get some of these radiant gears, which are also going to help you. So the way that I'm going to approach this video is to say, okay, which of these T15 raids should I start focusing on first? Because I'm expecting, as a free-to-play player, your resources are limited. So if you're going to focus on, for example, doing the pirate raid, you're probably focusing on these characters. Like you're probably focusing on bringing up Gui and Len. Whereas if you're doing something else like this one, you're probably focusing on different units. So my advice is that you should do the Varion raid. I think this is the one that free-to-play players should focus on. If you can do everything and get everything to T12, do that, right? But after that, if you need to focus on only one and you only have enough resources to focus on only one of them to go from, say, like T12 to T15, Varion is the one that I recommend. And the reason that I recommend it is for two reasons. First of all, I think it's one of the easier ones. Varion and Lizardia, I think those are the easier ones of the five. The other ones are a little bit more difficult in my opinion. And the second reason is because Varion's gears, like the loot, the crit set is way more useful than the HP set. So if you focus on this one and you're farming this and you get a few pieces of radiant HP gear, it's really not as useful as this one. And personally, I found this one just really annoying to do because the pools were just so big and they spawn all over the place, and you have to run around. It was really annoying for me to deal with. So I found this one easier to do, and so this is the one that I would recommend everyone does. Now I'm going to show you a clear that I did, and I did this clear with this team in the top left corner. Now the thing is, when I'm doing this clear, I've already cleared it once, so I'm going to have a 20% attack, defense, and HP buff that other players will not have access to. And also, like the gears that I'm using, you will see that probably like a free-to-play player will probably not have access to any of these gears that you're doing right now. So what I'm trying to tell you with this video is to say that this is what you should be focusing on getting, in the future, right? Like you're focusing on building up this team so that at some point you can do it. Like for example, if you're focusing on something else, like if you're focusing on, for example, getting Karen's defense set up or something, like you want to put all these defensive gears on Karen, and then you try to do this and you find that that's not working. Well, like I'm trying to avoid you doing that. I'm trying to tell you this is kind of the set that you need to be working on so that you can eventually do this at T15. So I'm going to go over these units, and you will see that I'm also using a lot of these L plus accessories. So I'm going to give you I'm going to talk about that later. I'm going to tell you why I use that and why like how you can get around that. So I'm going to talk about the team first, and then we will get into it. So first of all, I'm using Rudy, and first of all, the reason I'm calling this like a more free to play than a like a Veil Clear or something is because I avoided using any L plus units. I have them, like I have this Rudy. I could have used this one, and obviously I have Cosette as well instead of Chris that I could have used. So if I use them, obviously I would have a much easier time. But it's so much harder to actually pull these units for a free-to-play player than it is to do anything else. Like you can work on Radiant Gear slowly. You can craft and you can get lucky and you can get them. But trying to get Cosette or Rudy, and especially get both of them, is just going to, it's just going to be an insane amount of luck that you need. So that's why I focus on this team. Okay, so let me get into it. So, whoops, I put the wrong one there. So the gears. So for Rudy, I have a defense set. Um, I will talk about the accessories later. So I have a defense set for Rudy. I'm using Chris, and I have an attack set for Chris. I have Karen with a cooldown set. And finally, I have Henry with a skill up set. You'll notice that I only have 3 pieces of skill up. The reason I have 3 pieces is because I have a legend belt. So, typically you wouldn't have a legend belt, but I think it's actually not too bad to get a +2 skill level belt from Arena. I think you only need like maybe 4,000 rating, which isn't as hard as like 6,000 plus, which you need for a legend belt. So if you have +2 from this and +3 skill levels, that's the same as me having a +3 belt and +2 skill levels. That's the reason why I'm only using 3 pieces of the skill up set instead of 5. And now I'm going to talk about the accessories. So I'm going to talk about Chris first. If you're at the stage when you're doing T15 raids, you probably already beat the very hard story mode. At least you've done chapter 3 of the very hard story mode, where you can get this accessory. So everyone should have this, and you should put it on your main DPS. Now I'm using Chris for 2 reasons. One of the reasons I'm using him is because he's actually a little bit lower DPS than any of the other DPS that you probably have access to. Like if you have Miss Velvet, if you have Delins, if you have Cosette, if you just happen to be lucky and have Cosette, any of them, or even like Shane Plus, because by the time you do this, maybe you're at the 2 million limit. I'm not sure, right? Maybe you're at the total 2 million CP limit when you're doing this. I have no idea. Maybe not. Or maybe you just got lucky and have her. Anyway, there are so many better DPSs than Chris Plus. Sorry, not Chris Plus, regular Chris. And if you use them, you probably are able to match the DPS output that I have with, this and this. Like even if you use a different set, like even if you use like a crit necklace or something, right? And a crit ring. Sorry, not the, like, it's like whenever you crit you get attack or something. Like I forgot the name of the set, but if you use that set, you're probably able to match, actually even get even higher damage potential than I have with the 2 set of this and using Chris. The second reason that I'm using Chris is because I personally find it easier to use Chris than to use Delins or Miss Velvet, because they jump around, they teleport and stuff, and I find it a little bit more harder to control them than using Chris, because he just stands in place and attacks. So I like using Chris for that reason, and again, because I intentionally lower my damage potential by using Chris. Now I'm going to talk about Rudy. So Rudy, I'm using these accessories. I'm using Revive, Rage, and Indomitable necklace. But for I actually had trouble surviving with this much defense. Like even with 3.7k defense, I had trouble surviving. So what I would have actually done, like if I was starting the first time and I didn't have this, if I didn't have these accessories and this is what I had, I would, raise Rudy's potential. That's what I would do. So I would, go to Rudy and raise his, obviously, his defense potential and HP potential by a lot more. I left them at 333 and I don't really want to raise them anymore. So that's the reason why I'm using Rage and Revive, so that I can actually get through this run. But one thing you can do instead of using that is to raise his potentials, right? Like maybe you might even consider going to 12 defense and 12 HP. If that's what helps you get the T15 raid done, I think it's definitely worth it. Now I've already done this raid and I don't want to invest my potentials into this. I would rather do something else. That's the reason why I'm using this run this way, because I don't want to invest the potential into Rudy. I don't have interest. I have other people that I need to invest in right now, and so I'm not going to do that. So that's the reason why I'm using these Revive and Rage accessories. I probably won't be able to do this run right now if I didn't use Revive Rage. Sorry, this one. So if if you're still having a lot of trouble with this, I mean, maybe at some point you might even have to get a Revive or Rage accessory to be able to do this. That might even be what it comes down to. You probably could do it without it, but if you're not doing it, then you have to invest in other things. Like you have to actually invest in getting his defense potential and HP potentials up. You might even want to get like radiant gear, like even like a +0 radiant gear, like I'm using here. Like I have a +0 radiant helmet. sorry, not plus zero, but like I mean transcend zero helmet. So you might want to get like the same for his gloves and boots and armor piece. And when I transcend zero of any of these is going to give him more defense and HP than a transcend 5 normal gear like I have. The other stats like like the ignore defense resistance or the defense percent and the block rate, like those will be higher on a transcend 5 normal piece, but really you just want HP and defense to do this, so that might be something you might do instead. Now for Karen, I really think you need to bring a cooldown set for her here, because she's going to be the only healer on your team, and she has 2 heals. That's great, but you need to recycle them as often as you can. So you really want to bring a like a full cooldown gear, like a 5 piece of cooldown gear for 14% cooldown decrease, and I put her in. I mean, I'm using a crit set, crit formation, but you might even think of using something like a basic formation, which is going to give you a skill cooldown even more on her. That might actually, that might even be something you need to do. But I'm doing this, and I instead have 1 piece of time acceleration on her, and I also have revive rage because I think I think she dies once, and the rage blocks her from dying. So it's you still have to avoid skill shots and stuff, and I was a bit lazy with this run, so that's why I didn't avoid all of them like I should have. So that saved me. But if you if you are able to get her cooldown down as much as possible, and also use like a formation that decreases cooldown as well, then you might be able to get away with not using a time acceleration accessory. If you have a time acceleration accessory, then you can use a different formation like I'm using, like crit. Now finally for Henry, again I'm using revive rage, and I have his potentials at I think either 333 or 000. Let me just double check here, and it's the same thing as before. I don't want to invest in his potential, so I actually won't be able to do this run. Sorry, I'm trying to exit. So I wouldn't be able to do this run. Okay, so it's a 333. I wouldn't be able to do this run without increasing, defense and HP potentials, and not using revive rage. So because I didn't want to invest in the potentials, that's why I'm using the revive and rage accessory. So that's the team and that's the gears. One thing I want to point out is that you only need to beat this once. As soon as you beat it the very first time, you don't really have to do it again. You can just use clears. You get 10 clears a day. If this is the only thing that you have done at T15 and everything else is at T12 or something, you can do this. You can do like 10 attempts of this and do 1 attempt of the like if it's easy to do, you can just do a normal, like a single battle of the other ones that you have, or you can do like 1 attempt of each of these. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 8 player. So you do one of you use 1 clear for all of these 5 raids, and then the remaining 5 clears you would use on this, like you would just do clear, the auto clear. So you only need to beat it once. So the reason I'm saying that is because as soon as you beat it once, and you can do this, you might actually have to get lucky on the 1 raid that you're beating. And what I mean by that is, if you see the clear that I did, the boss actually used his suppression skill twice. So that's basically like free DPS for me. I did quite a bit of DPS, during the suppression time. You can notice that the boss HP went down quite a lot. He wasn't running around. He wasn't using skills. There wasn't any AoEs for me to avoid. I was just standing there and doing damage, and I got to do it twice. So you might actually have to do this like a few times. Maybe you're doing it like 7 or 8 times to get to a point where the boss is doing the suppression skill twice, and that might be the edge that you need to beat it. So keep an eye out for that. Like, don't get discouraged. Like, if you think you're at a place where you can beat it, but you're just missing like say 20% of HP or something, and you can beat it, within, except for that 20%, just try again. Maybe the next time you're doing it, the boss is going to do a suppression twice, or maybe 3 times, something like that, right? And you get lucky and you're able to beat it. Something else I want to mention. So because I have a plus 20% attack, defense, and HP buff, I thought that I would gimp my masteries for that. No, I can't remove my masteries, right? So instead of removing my masteries, I went with all attack masteries. You can see here what I went with. My masteries. So this is what I'm using. As you can see, I'm using all attack masteries except for status of effect resistance, which you obviously will need. So the reason I did this is because obviously, again, I can't remove the masteries, right? So I have to either go all attack or all defense. So if I can do this with all attack masteries, you can do this with all defense masteries. Like, I'm having I'm having like I'm still able to survive, right? Like with the 20% attack, defense, and HP buff, and no defense masteries, I'm able to survive. So without this buff and defense masteries, you should hopefully be taking kind of the same amount of damage that I'm taking without defense masteries. I hope that makes sense. Let me try to say it again. So since I have the defense buff from the dungeon clearance, I removed my defensive masteries so that if you are using defensive masteries, you're hopefully taking the same amount of damage that I'm taking. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So what about the attack? Well, I can finish this raid in like the boss's attack timer doesn't even reach half. Like the berserk timer doesn't even reach half, and I'm able to beat it. So if I can do that with the attack masteries, hopefully with defensive masteries you can beat it like right before berserks. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Like I can't remove masteries and I can't remove this to show you. So I'm hoping with this setup and what I'm telling you, you go for it, you attempt it, and that's kind of where you are at. And also I'm using Chris, right? So hopefully if you use something like Miss Velvet or even Cosette, because maybe by the time you are doing this you got Cosette, maybe you got her from the guaranteed legendary plus selected banner that I keep telling you about. So maybe at that time you actually have Cosette, you have a much higher damage potential, you can do this with defensive masteries and still get a similar result. That's what I'm hoping. So that's that's how I'm showing you. So that's all the advice I have, all the things that I have to talk about. Now I'm going to show you a run through of the raid that I did, but I'm going to stop talking through it. It's just going to be playing in the background, and you guys can see how I did it. And that's it for all the comments. So if you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it gives you some ideas on something to work towards, such that you will be able to do this at some point. I'm not expecting any free-to-play player to watch this and be like, okay, so now I can do this today. That's not the idea. The idea is that, like people that are paying for this are obviously getting ahead like so much faster, right? So if you're a free player, you need, I wouldn't expect any free-to-play player to do the T15 raids the week that it comes out. I don't think that's what it means to be a good free-to-play game. It just means it's going to take you time to do it. So this is kind of a setup that you can work on, and maybe in a few weeks, maybe in a month, maybe even longer, you can get to doing this. But the idea is to show you what you can work towards such that you can do it one day. I don't want to just be like, oh, you need these L plus units, otherwise you have no chance of doing it. I don't want to do that, right? So I hope this helps, and I hope this video gives you guys some ideas on how to tackle this. So that's it for me for now. As far as commenting goes, I'm just going to show you the run that I did, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have other questions or comments, please leave me a comment below, and I'll do my best to help you guys out. Take care now, and I will see you guys next time.